From Mississippi State University in Starkville, Mississippi, this is Taking the Reins podcast. If you love all things horses, get ready for a relatable and educational look into the lives of horses and the people who love them. Now here's our host, Clay Cavender.
Something that's, I can use generic. It doesn't have to be perfect, but his discussion was really good. I enjoyed the discussion on the topic of horse nutrition because it's so important.
Yeah.
And y'all, but how do y'all relate in terms of compliment each other? Does he take charge when he's around? He seems like a take charge kind of guy.
Yeah. He, so I say like I'm more of the applied kind of person. So, I'm out in the field all the time and I work with these barns all the time. And, kind of the running joke is you're a specialist if you're from over 50 miles away. Marty really is a specialist. But when I pull him in, he is definitely more of that technical side. So, we've got a customer that, maybe has some questions that goes beyond, my realm of education or experience, or, they just want that reassurance of like, oh, it's the nutritionist. And the nutritionist is saying that, this is the right thing. But yeah, like a lot of the time when Marty comes to work with me, it's kind of those special events of, we're doing a consumer meeting and we're really trying to, draw a big crowd, or I've got some barns lined up that I've been working with for a really long time, and they've got questions that I can't answer, or I'm not 100% comfortable with, or they're in depth to the point that I'm throwing my hands in the air going, I don't know.
I would think for the most part though, you're telling them the same stuff.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like when it's kind of like parenting.
Yes.
You bring in the teacher and they say the same thing. It's a value, then the parent, they don't know nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's just that reassurance. It's I am not a proud person. So I'll tell you if I don't know something. Like I will be the first to tell you I'm not sure, or I have an idea of what I think we should do, or I think this would be the right course of action, but let me call people. And, Dr. Marty and then our on-staff veterinarian, Dr. Aaron, is who I'm going to call. And, sometimes I call one of them. Sometimes I may call both. Sometimes I'm putting them on a conference call and giving them the scenario and saying, how do we proceed? And then I call those barns back. And, it happened quite literally last week. I was at a barn. Customer had questions, got the questions to Marty, and I told her, hey, I'm going to let our nutritionist address these. Marty addressed them. I went and talked to her face to face. She had additional questions. I explained things, and then she had even more. So I'm like, you know what? We're just going to get Marty on the phone. And so I got Marty on the phone right then and there while I was in the barn. And, he pretty much reiterated everything that we had talked about for the, prior couple of days, and
gave her peace of mind.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what, obviously on the technical side, on the research development side, that's where he, plays with us. But he's there, he reassures a lot of our end users with, any of us reps.
Where's he located physically?
He is in Florida, but he supports pretty much nationally. Like he's going to be in Texas, I think, all next week. And then Virginia the week after. We keep Marty busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
But are you in Jackson? Where are you located?
Everywhere. So I live north of Tupelo. I live in Booneville.
Oh, are you from Booneville?
I'm not from Booneville.
Not from Booneville?
I can claim it now.
Your husband Booneville?
My husband's from Booneville. I'm from Brandon.
That's the Jackson connection.
Yes, from Brandon. But I cover, technically, I'm tagged to everything east of the Mississippi River. But I focus on Mississippi, West Tennessee, and Northwest Alabama.
So what's your official job title then?
Officially, it is an equine technical representative.
So you're doing the farm calls. You're the one that's on site most of the time, and then
Yes.
Yeah. How did you get involved in that? Then you went to Mississippi State, and
yeah.
Are you innately a horse person, or did you just fall into that?
No,
because a lot of these feed companies, when I talk to them, they'll have a feed rep that's doing the horse side that's not
Yeah.
in that space.
And we had a lot of that years ago, and fortunately, as a company, we've kind of migrated to our equine reps are equine people, and vice versa. Our cattle people, our pet people, etc. But no, I've been a horse person my whole life. I started riding when I was 4, competitively, rode through school, even through college, attended Mississippi State, animal science degree. That typical, I was pre-vet until I decided, nope, this is not for me. I'd actually done an internship with the Mississippi Beef Council and realized that I really like the education outreach way more than I like the medicine side of things. So when I graduated, I was working at a large co-op. My husband was working with the Department of Wildlife, and right at a month before we were set to get married, he calls me in the middle of the day and he's like, "Hey, I've got a grad school offer in Louisiana. What are your thoughts?" I'm like, "Well, I think we're moving to Louisiana." And so just kind of things progressed, and the Nutrena rep came in a couple weeks later and just, asking how life was, small talk. And, I told him that I was about to be leaving that co-op, that we were going to Louisiana, and he asked, did I have anything lined up? And, I told him no. And he's like, well, hey, we actually have an opportunity in Louisiana. The rep that was in that market moved up, and we have an open territory, you should put in. And so I applied and had my HR interview the Monday that Jamie and I got married, and quite literally sitting in the church parking lot an hour before our rehearsal dinner, I had my preliminary interview with my then to-be managers. Yeah, it was hilarious. I was locked in the car, and my brother-in-law was messing with me and tapping on the windows and stuff. So I'm like, hush. And my managers are like, what's going on? How are, I'm like, oh, I'm great.
Yeah. So, that's a lot of stress.
It was a lot. So yeah, we got married, we moved to Louisiana, and a week and a half later, I started with Cargill, and I'm actually celebrating 12 years this week.
12 years. So you're employed by the very first entity right out of
Yes.
school.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't happen very often.
No.
I heard the other day, like USA Today or somebody said that people usually on average, so some less, some more, but on average change jobs 8 times before they find their career.
Yeah.
To find it one right off the bat is pretty unique.
I'm very fortunate, and I'm super proud to work for the company that I work for, and have been really fortunate to develop as a professional, develop as a person. And, I really love what I do. We went to kind of a team mentality about 7 years ago, to where we have, certain people that actually are the sales reps. And then, at that time I became a field rep. So I was working with horses, cattle, and, pet poultry. So just kind of as a specialist, calling on the cattle producers, the horse farms, etc. And then about 4 years ago, I went predominantly equine. And then a couple years ago, it was 100% equine rep. So, I may go support, at a pet event or a poultry event if the account rep needs me, just because I've done it for so long. But I would say 95% of what I do is work with the equine consumers.
Is that because the company's growing more in that sector, or there's a need in this area more for that, or how did that develop?
Yeah, so both. We went to that team mentality about 7 years ago, just because we saw it was very successful. We developed or pioneered that, I guess, in Texas, to where we had the account reps that was the company to the dealers, or the customers is what we would call them. And then we had those specialists. So we had the equine specialist, beef specialist, obviously in Texas, wildlife specialist, and they were the customers to the consumers. And, the liaison back and forth, obviously taking information to the consumers and then going and gaining new business and bringing it back to the customers. So just depending on the market in the United States, you may see more equine reps or more poultry reps or more beef reps, just depending on where you are. So, obviously here in Mississippi, we're not really in the beef business as a company. Like, we have beef products, but not in the same sense as some of the other companies, but we really, really, shine with our equine business. So that's where, a couple years ago, they came to me and said, here's what we want you to do, and focus, your time and efforts on it, and the rest is history. And I truly love what I do.
So is that creating new business, maintaining old business, both?
Yeah, it's both. It's both. Obviously we love to, new distribution and grow the business, but depending on the market, the market maturity may vary. So I would say my time is probably split 60-40 in getting new business versus maintaining, the relationships with our current business. I mean, I feel like it's, just as important to facilitate those relationships, cultivate those relationships, and maintain those relationships, just because I'm not the only person in this business. There are other companies that are out, obviously trying to do the same thing that I do. So it's very important to be, relationship oriented in what you do.
Well, knowing you for, it's been a while.
Been a while.
We've known each other a while. I can see why they picked you, because you're extremely bubbly and personable, and you're a people person for sure. What does it take in terms of your skill set? What things do you think you have in your skill set that help you in your day-to-day role in the business? What is your day-to-day role on a typical day? Does that mean you're going to be in North Mississippi today and Louisiana tomorrow? And
yeah. So day to day.
And how do you do that? You got kids. How do you do that?
A lot of juggling. Really great support system. Wonderful husband. So it varies. I kind of look at it used to be a week to week. Now it's kind of a month to month calendar. But yesterday I was, kind of home market close to Tupelo. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Memphis. Thursday I'm going to be in Jackson, so it's a lot of driving. I did right at 4,000 miles last month, but it just kind of depends on what's going on. Are there promotions? Are there new products? Obviously this time of year a lot of farms are getting their hay in the barn, and we do complimentary hay analysis, and obviously forage is the basis for any good nutrition program. So I do a lot of hay testing this time of year, and then go back to those farms and we, hey, yep, this is what our hay looks like. So do we need to make adjustments on the feed side to make sure that, our horses are where we want them to be? So on a day-to-day, it's a lot of windshield time. I probably see on average 3 or 4 barns a day, just depending on, the length and the depth of the conversations at those barns. Some days are, Mondays are computer days. Every single Monday is a computer day pretty much for me. But yeah, it's unique. On the skill set side, obviously having an equine background is beneficial, with what I do, just on the ability to relate to your customer. And just the basic terminology. You don't want to walk in a barn and somebody say, this is a Hanoverian, and you're like, oh, what is that? But also being able to, accept the fact that you don't know everything, and, learn about new breeds, new disciplines, different aspects of the industry as a whole. And that's what's been really, really cool for me in my career is, in the course of the 12 years, I have worked in 5 states and been able to work with barns with countless disciplines. And, it was just a couple years ago that I finally got in a barn that, had saddle seat horses. And up until then, I had never dealt with that. So that was a learning experience for me of, this is this breed and this is this discipline and these are the needs. But as for like a skill set, things are preferred. Just having that basic knowledge, that basic understanding, obviously with an animal science degree, that helps. But it takes the right person. So like what you were saying in the beginning is sometimes, we may have people that don't really know a lot about a horse or a cow or a dog. But having the right attitude and being able to be, someone who is personable, relatable, etc., we can teach them what you need to know. But we can't teach you how to be the right kind of person, if that makes sense.
And that's a hard thing to teach even at the college level. I don't think I think that's developed.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's taught. Like, I think you are the person you are, and that's you're just innately an extrovert probably, and you're an outgoing person, so it's easier for you to talk to people, and that skill set can be further enhanced and developed. But it's a hard one to teach somebody who's not quite in that space, and it takes all types.
It does. And we have some reps that aren't necessarily as personable, but they really excel with like the store relationships, because sometimes stores are more analytical. They like the sales reports, they like the data. And so just because you may not be the best fit to go out and call on a farm or do an educational event or work a trade show doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful, in this field, because you may be really, really good at that, like data communication and the data entry. And that's a lot of what like the account rep title holds, is more of that analytical type mindset.
Yeah, you may be like me. I think we're a lot alike in terms of, I feel comfortable talking to people, but I hate paperwork.
Yeah.
You said Mondays are your paperwork days. But that's the beauty too of one of the things we're trying to do with this podcast too is just, I think it's really important to bring people awareness about how many different ways can you be involved in the horse business. And what you do is not something we've had on before, but you do have to have the right skill set. You do have to have the right desire, because to be in this job for 12 years, you obviously enjoy it. I mean, not every job is enjoyable every day, but you've got to have a really good comfort and desire to progress in your field to want to do it 12 years.
Yes.
But if you try to force that, I guess is my point, if you try to force your way into being a talkative person that can go and do farm talks, you may rethink that a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Because that's going to wear out pretty quick. And you mentioned something else I think is really important. I tell my students all the time. When you go visit a farm, you can, in the horse business, maybe the livestock business too, other aspects of the livestock, but on a horse farm, if you use the wrong terminology one time,
yeah, you're done.
You're probably not coming back.
Yeah.
I tell that we have so many pre-vets, we're 80% pre-vet. Mm-hmm. I tell the students in my handling class, it's like, if you put the halter on in a different way than I'm telling you, you probably won't get to come back to that farm someday. But you might be the best vet in the world.
Yeah.
Might be the best salesman in the world, but the wrong terminology, the wrong practice can knock your knees out from under you to horse farm.
Absolutely. It's better to ask questions and try to take it as a learning opportunity, because people like to talk about themselves. And so what I've found, especially on a farm, if I'm unfamiliar with a breed, if I'm unfamiliar with a discipline, I honestly ask more questions just about their operation than I do about their nutrition program, because inadvertently they're going to tell me what's going on. But I'm taking that as, hey, I've never been on, a saddle seat farm. So tell me about these horses. Tell me about how often you ride them. Tell me about your shows. Tell me about the day-to-day. And therefore, I'm learning. So the next barn that I go to that shares the same breeds or discipline, I'm going to be a little bit more educated. But that consumer has also really enjoyed our visit, because they've got to take the last hour and a half and talk about themselves and brag on themselves and brag on the horses in their barn. And it just, it's all relationship building. And I can't remember who mentored me that told me, but, in our field, people buy from people. And so I am huge on relationships. I think it's super important to have a relationship, because then, if and when something goes wrong, because inevitably it will, it's just the nature of the business. You're going to get a moldy bag of feed. You're going to have something that doesn't quite work the way you want it to. I want those customers to know that they can reach out, they can call me, and we have that kind of relationship versus, hey, I'm dissatisfied, and, when I went to the feed store and bought that bag of feed, that was the end of me talking to Sarah. That's not the case. And I really take pride in making sure that, our customers know that I'm involved in their business. I'm involved in what they're doing. And, I truly want to know more, and I want what's best for them. And it's been really, really fun to learn about, it's even just in the Southeast, all the different disciplines that
there's a lot.
Here.
Even moving from Texas, I was shocked at how different
Oh, absolutely.
They're diverse, I guess, is the right word for the horse business here.
Yes. I started in Louisiana, and it was, some hunter jumper, in certain pockets, but it's mainly, thoroughbred and quarter horse, racing. And when I moved back to Mississippi is when I really realized how diverse it was here. And then, in North Mississippi and then in North Alabama, there's even more diversity than what was in Central Mississippi.
Yeah, it's wild. We were earlier talking about our buddy Keaton. You call on Keaton quite a bit. Keaton's on the podcast. I don't know if you've listened to his episode.
Yeah.
He did a good job.
Well, good.
But Keaton was a student of mine years ago. Well, use him as an example. Like, I don't know if you knew him before he was a student, but how did you just walk onto his farm and talk to him, or a friend of a friend?
It was a friend of a friend. I actually had a horse in my barn that I was looking for a trainer for, and I had the horse in the pasture, and it was a gentleman that was building my house, and he was asking me about the horse, and I was telling him, and he was like, "Oh, well, have you talked to Keaton?" And I'm like, "No." And he was telling me that he had sent his horse to Keaton, and he was like, "You should call him." And so it just kind of progression of events, and I got in touch with Keaton, and we've had a really good professional relationship for years now. He started my horse for me, and we got his barn on the Nutrena program, and he's a wonderful advocate for the products, and we talk pretty regular. If he has a horse come in, he has questions on.
That's what I want to know about. You went by there pretty quick, so you get into his barn. Mm-hmm. You're there for your personal business, like you're talking horse business. How did you just circumnavigate the discussion to bring it to, let's talk about me selling you some horse feed? How do you get to that point?
So with any barn, I never call a farm and, "Hey, I'm Sara with Nutrena, and I want to talk to you about nutrition." Like that's never. It's especially first phone calls. Even with Keaton, it's, I want to learn more about your operation. Tell me about what you do. And it just kind of organically goes from there. So once I get on the barn, they're telling me about their horses. They're telling me about what they do, how long they've been in business, what are your hopes and dreams and goals, all the things. It kind of, well, hey, here's what I do. And it's pretty, it's a given of, I'm calling and I'm going to introduce myself and I'm going to tell you that I work for a feed company. It's not a secret. So when I go on a barn, in the back of their mind, customers know, like, okay, the lady's here to sell feed.
She bringing me a horse to sell me feed.
Right. But like with Keaton, it was just we talked for a while about the horse, and then I asked him what he was doing. And, again, very similarly with most, barn owners, they'll tell you, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. And then, you ask questions of, well, are you happy with your horse's performance? Are you happy with their appearance? Are you happy with how much you're paying? Which, the answer to that is typically no. But so there's just some questions that you can ask, and sometimes the answer to that is yes, I'm happy, yes, I'm happy, yes, I'm happy, and you're shut down. And you're walking through the barn and you see a singular horse that's showing some behavior that may be a little bit atypical, and you start asking questions about that horse, and then they start talking about that horse, and then you're like, oh, there it is. And again, I tell people all the time, I don't sell feed. The feed store sells feed. I don't sell feed. I'm quite literally technical support. So I'm here to give you information, and what you do with that information is 100% ball in your court. But that's usually how, like a call would progress for me is, you're on a barn, you're talking about, what do you do? Or, hey, will you train my horse for me? And then it just kind of goes from there of, what are you feeding? Well, do you like it? Well, are you happy with, everything that's going on? Or do you think, we could either get better performance, or maybe we could save money, or, whatever that may be. And, we just work from there. And some barn calls are super easy, and you leave that day with a new customer. And some, I have literally been calling on farms for years. And it's still hey, come out and see me anytime you want to, but I'm happy with what I'm doing. And that's okay too.
But you keep coming.
I keep coming because, sometimes things happen. The company may change. They may have quality problems. They may have, pricing changes. At the end of the day, with any company, changes happen. And the consumers, across the board, you're not going to get 100% satisfaction rate. You're going to have some that decide to leave for whatever reason. I want to be top of mind.
I think from a consumer standpoint, that's a really good mindset, because I've seen both. I've seen you've developed friendship with us, over the years, and then we've had other people that just show up. Like I remember multiple times I'm, trying to get ridden and trying to get my horses ridden and trying to get things done, and some guy stand on the fence watching, and you feel pressured,
right.
And they're over there to hand you some pamphlets, and I have no interest at that point. I'm irritated.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to get something done, and
yeah,
you're
I don't like to do that. I don't like to cold call on anybody. There for a long time, on a company standpoint, they're like, yeah, just pull up on a barn, leave information, and leave. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't know about that.
No. Like I may Facebook stalk you. I may call around, ask questions. I may ask the feed store, do you know who, this farm is? But I'm going to try to get a point of contact and get an invitation first before I show up, because, it's either your livelihood and you are teaching lessons, you are training horses, your time is literally money, and I'm going to be respectful of that, or it's your hobby and this is your decompression time, and the last thing you want is somebody showing up trying to, give you information, sell you a product, whatever that may be. So, I guess my mindset is I don't want somebody showing up at my barn uninvited, unannounced. I'm not going to do that to somebody else.
I think that's smart. And are these things that you think you learned in 12 years of making errors, or was this just, because to me, a lot of this is common sense. A lot of it's common sense, but again, I don't know that we probably need to teach a class in college on common sense. But at the same time, I think being in the real world, you learn what to do and what not to do.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And again, like we can take, that quote unquote company policy and kind of use that as, the outline. But yeah, I have been not so politely asked to leave barns before. I have been not so politely asked not to come back before.
Just get out.
Yeah. Just, you need an appointment. You're not welcome here. And that was verbatim, like, bye. And I left and went to the feed store, and I was like, hey, I was just at this farm. And they're like, oh yeah, they're like that. Yeah. They're like, call us next time. We'll get you out there. But yeah, it's a lot of live and learn. You deal with all kinds. And, and some people, they're okay with it. And I would say most people are okay with you just showing up or calling in and just directly soliciting their business. Again, I kind of take that mentality of how would I want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And I treat potential customers and current customers the same way that I would want to be treated.
Seems like common sense.
Yes, very much so, or at least I try.
Well, one of the things I'm very impressed with my discussion with you and Marty in the past is I'm always leery because I'm thinking, who's trying to sell me something? That's experience as well. But you guys always point to hay. Mm-hmm. You guys always point to hay, and every time you do that, I'm kind of shocked because it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And you guys are, in the grand scheme of things, you're trying to sell bags of feed in the simplistic world. But you guys are pointing to hay, which is, again, correct. So I like that a lot in the fact that you want to help people build their nutrition program from quality hay first.
Yes.
And then bring in your products on the backside, which to me seems sincere. It seems correct, scientific, appropriate. I mean, all the measures in place to gain trust with somebody. Yeah.
Well, so a horse was designed to eat forage. And if you've got good forage and plenty of it, that bag of feed is nothing more than a supplement. And if more horse owners could really grasp that concept, I truly believe they would be happier with their horse's appearance, performance, their feed bill. Their horses are going to be healthier. And at the end of the day, everybody's going to walk away, happier for it because the basis is there. I can't tell you how many times in the course of my career I've had a customer call me and they are mad because, they've gone and bought the most expensive bag of feed that, the feed store has to offer, whether it be our feed, a competitor's feed, it doesn't matter. And they're like, and I'm feeding, this ungodly amount, and their horse is still skinny. Their horse still doesn't have a top line there. And so then it just goes back to those common sense basic questions. Hey, when was the last time this horse's teeth were looked at? When's the last time you dewormed? And what does your pasture look like? What does your hay look like? And as bad as I hate to say it, I'd say probably 7 out of 10 times they're like, oh, well, they just got a round bale out there. Okay, well, have you had your hay tested? No. I'm like, okay, let's back up. And so we start from the bottom. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, once we get that hay situation sorted out, the feed comes easy. And those horses are healthy, they're performing well, the customers are super happy with, all aspects, including their feed bill. And, we are at a positive for all of it. And so, at the end of the day, if we don't have those bases right, it really doesn't matter what bag of feed you go buy.
Is that the primary problem you see with when you do visits to farms, whether they're your business or not? Maybe maybe it's a fresh call or it's a Keaton. You're going to see Keaton, and do you see those similar traits, or is there another common problem that would be on the top of your list?
I would say forage quality is probably the most common issue that I see, and whether that be hay or pasture. And of course, pasture can have its own set of challenges, whether you have too many horses in a pasture or you haven't, made the right amendments to your pasture. And I see that a lot. And then of course, hay is, huge issue. And most of the time when I have somebody that says I have a problem, it's typically one of those two. But then on the feed side, more often than not, they're probably feeding, that right class of product, but they're not feeding it correctly. So they're not feeding enough of it, or they're feeding too much of it. And I see that probably more than anything is, we are overloving the horses more than we're not feeding them enough. But at a barn a couple weeks ago, and the horses were a little underweight, didn't have top lines. Their hay was really, really good. So that wasn't the problem. But when I went to the feed room and we were looking at, what did everybody get? All of the horses were being underfed to where it wasn't even meeting the recommended daily amount that's on, the manufacturer's bag of, hey, you have to feed 6 pounds of this product to meet requirements. They were feeding 4. And then they were having issues with their horses' top lines.
Where do you think that comes from? Just looks like enough to me, or?
Yeah, I think it comes from, just kind of almost a generational thing of like, oh, everybody gets 2 scoops. Everybody gets 2 scoops. Well, the 800-pound pony and the 1,400-pound eventer don't need the same amount of feed. So, a lot of barns that I work with typically have like a hired help, and easier is better. Some people just don't take the time to read the tag, do research, and that would be, like if you could say, hey, Sarah, what's the one thing you wish you could see more in the feed industry is do your research on your products. Do your research on what are you feeding, why are you feeding it, and how much should you feed? Because that would eliminate a lot of, your headache in the feed room for sure.
Marty brought this up too. I've thought a lot about this. It's a great point. Even if you do read the feed tag and it says, just for easy math, a 1,000-pound horse should get this many pounds of this a day. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people, A, don't know what their horse weighs.
Yeah.
And don't know how to figure it out.
Yep.
Or B, they do know what he weighs, so they feed that amount, but he's really not a 1,000-pound horse. He's a 1,200-pound horse that's currently a body condition score 4.
Yeah.
And we're wondering why we're not getting him to a 5, but that's because we're feeding him as a 1,000-pound horse.
Right.
When he's a 1,200-pound horse.
Right.
So I see that a lot. But what are some ways too? This is not something Marty and I talked about, so I wanted to get your input on it. What are some ways that we can figure out easily what our horses weigh?
Yeah. So you can get a weigh tape. Usually feed stores have them. They sell them. If you can't find an actual, horse and pony weigh tape, you can get the flexible fabric.
Soft tape?
Yeah, the soft tapes from, Walmart, Hobby Lobby. And you take heart girth measurement, body length measurement. There's a simple equation, and I always get it a little backwards. But I think it's, and you may have to correct me, heart girth times body length. I think it may be body length times heart girth.
It's heart girth squared times body length.
Yes, and then divided by 330 for a stock type horse. And that divisible number changes for a pony, it changes for a yearling, it changes for a draft. But it's a simple Google question if you have something other than a stock type horse. But you measure from the point of the shoulder to the point of the hip to get their body length, and then around their heart girth, it is perpendicular to the ground around their heart girth, and kind of the general rule of thumb is to scoot that tape up to where their mane ends, and then perpendicular to the ground, straight up and down around their body. Pull everything snug but not tight, and it's a pretty close
it actually is.
measurement.
It's pretty wild. I was in grad school, PhD. I had to weigh 24 mares for 9 months. Every 2 weeks, weight was one of the things I had to take on them. And when I was at it, I was learning about this body condition or this body weight estimate. And I thought, that's no way that's true. So just for fun, every time I threw them on a scale and weighed them, I'd take a soft tape and do that.
Yeah.
And it was wild how I would say a 1,000-pound horse, that dang tape would be within 20 to 40 pounds.
Yeah.
Which on a grand scale, a 1,000-pound horse is not much difference.
It's not much. And there's actually some newer measurements that now you can take the body length, the heart girth, a neck circumference, so midway down their neck at the third thoracic vertebra, and their height. And there's an equation that you can plug all of that into and get an even more accurate. So if you've got a horse that is in a severely, either malnourished situation or one that we're looking at him going, wow, we are really obese and we need to start looking at a major calorie deficit, we can take some additional measurements and get even more of an accurate reading on how much does that horse weigh, especially if we're saying we're within a body condition of critical, and really dial in on exactly how much that horse should eat or how much does that horse weigh, and so we can track it a little bit, closely.
And I think it's where the body condition score and the body weight measurement got to work hand in hand because of what we said before. You might tape him and he's 1,000 pounds, but he's a body condition score 3.
Right.
Well, it needs to go hand in hand. So I need to, if you don't know, people listening don't know what body condition score is, it's a numerical measurement of fat deposition, basically, on the horse's body. A scale of 1 to 9, 5 in the middle. So if he's a moderate body condition score and I weight tape him and he's 1,000 pounds, and I'm probably feeding a 1,000-pound horse. So that's one way to be, going back to our original discussion about reading feed tags. People might be confused. Well, I read the feed tag and I'm giving him what he's supposed to have.
But are you really?
Yes. Right.
Yes. And we've got some really good resources on our websites that talk about how to body condition score, how to top line score, how to take a, weight measurement to where everything, correlates with one another, to where you're looking at your horse going, do I need calories? Do I need protein or amino acids in my horse's diet? Because I see that a lot too of, my horse is skinny. And, I either get pictures of a horse or I go out to a barn and the horse is not skinny. It's got a moderate body condition, but the top line is lacking. So that horse isn't lacking in calories. It needs more amino acids in its diet. Now, I can honestly say I've never seen a horse that has a good top line but is skinny, because obviously you have to have that body condition to be able to put muscle on. But I see that a lot of, pretty moderate body conditions, but we don't have the top line that horse needs.
You mentioned earlier, at times you see horses that are overweight. What's wrong with the fat horse? Everybody's dog's fat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's wrong with the fat horse?
We have, as an industry, I think we overlove our animals. So, obviously having that inherently fat horse, we run into some of the same problems that, you and I would run into if we were overweight for, an extended period of time. These horses are more susceptible to, being laminitic, foundering, having metabolic issues later in life. Horses that are, overweight or insulin resistant at a younger age, there is a correlation to having PSSM in their senior years. So it's kind of a pre-programmed thing of, if you've got a 3, 4, 5, 10-year-old horse that is consistently that body condition of a 6, 6.5, 7, 8, I've seen some 9s, believe it or not, chances are, either A, you're not going to have a sound horse for a very long time because we're going to run into those hoof problems, joint problems, but we're going to have even more severe metabolic issues that we're having to either manage or make really difficult decisions on later in life. The unfortunate part is, fat's attractive in some rings. And, there's been some studies that have shown, like judges' preferences with some disciplines, and the fat horses place higher than, the moderate to ideal type horses with the same performance in the ring, just because that fat kind of looks better, and that's what the industry has gravitated to. So, hopefully as an industry, as we learn more on the nutrition side about what it means to, the negative implications of being fat, hopefully it'll kind of change that perception in the show ring as well. And, the health of the horse will become, more important than that appearance, if you will.
And I'm sure as a fat horse, you can save them money.
Oh, for sure.
You got a bunch of fat horses. And they're welcome to have you if you're going to save them money.
Yeah. Fat horses are pretty easy because you don't, a diet balancer, because obviously, they're meeting their caloric needs usually by just existing. I've got 5 at my house that just exist, and I could roll them down the hill. And you just give them a diet balancer to make sure that they're getting their vitamins, minerals, amino acids, they're those functional ingredients that help them, and go on about your day.
Right.
But I see a lot of people, they've got the super duper fat, crusty neck, water could sit in the crease of their back, and I give them 2 scoops a day of sweet feed, and I'm like, oh no. Yeah. Let's talk.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've done a great job of giving us perspective on some common sense approaches, along with some real world application on sales for sure, and also kind of how, as horse owners, we need to be feeding our horses. Great. If you haven't listened to Marty's episode, it'll come out before this one, so they'll be able to listen to that. But a great dual pairing between 2 people that get the horse business and nutrition wise. With that said, what would be the one thing, if you could give a horse owner? I want you to do 2 things.
Okay.
What is the one piece of advice that you give horse owners that are new to the horse business? How do they get educated? Where can they find education? And 2, how do they get in touch with you in case maybe they're listening? It's like, man, I need Sara to come to my barn. Yeah. And look at my horses and discuss this with me. Is that something you would do?
Absolutely. So first of all, if you are new to the horse industry, find you a good veterinarian. Okay. If you've got, if you have pets and you've got a good vet on the small animal side, obviously you can ask them, do you work on large animal? If you don't, do you recommend somebody? And I always say, check out a few different veterinarians. Make sure that, their goals align with what your goals are. Extension is a great way to get information. If you've got young kids, get involved with 4-H. That 4-H really brought me to where I am today. I was a first generation kind of horse girl in my family, and luckily, got involved with 4-H as soon as I could, and stayed with it until I aged out, and, really, helped me not only with my equine knowledge, but personal development as well. So leaning into extension, it's a great way to get information. On the feed side, and I'm going to say this with a little bit of like an asterisk beside it, because I would say one of the things that I dislike the most is when people go to Dr. Google a little bit more than what they should. But, you can go to the feed store, ask the feed store, hey, I need to talk to somebody about feed. Ask them questions. They'll get you information. Go to, manufacturers' websites. Those websites are going to give you, obviously information on their products, but it's going to give you, research. It's going to give you their educational partners, et cetera. So for us, you can learn more about Nutrena products at www.nutrenaworld.com or at www.proelitehorsefeed.com. And then to get in touch with me, you are welcome to send me an email, and I will, give you a call. And it can be just simple of, hey, Sarah, I've, heard the podcast, would like to speak with you. And you can just send me an email at Sara_Holt@cargill.com. And so that's going to be Sara, Sara_Holt, HOLT, at Cargill, CARGILL.com.
I'll put that in there too, in the description, so they can click right on it too if they want to.
Absolutely.
But thank you for your time, Sarah. You did a great job, and it was great information for sure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on Taking the Reins. A special thank you goes to the Mississippi State Extension Service and the MSU Animal and Dairy Sciences Department. Please visit us on Facebook and Instagram at Taking the Reins Podcast.